Blake Turner's voice cut through the glass boardroom like a knife. Effective immediately, Emma Ward's position is eliminated. My coffee cup nearly slipped from my hands. 30 people sat around that conference table, and not one of them looked at me. Blake straightened his silk tie and tapped a folder with my name already printed on it. This wasn't a restructuring meeting. This was my execution. Heat crawled up my neck. My hands shook under the table. I tried to speak, but security was already moving toward me. Blake stared at his phone like I'd already disappeared. 8 years. I'd given this company 8 years. Started at the front desk answering phones, worked nights to finish my degree, climbed to operations manager. I missed Liam's soccer games. I skipped family dinners. I believed loyalty meant something. Standing there while everyone pretended I didn't exist, one thought burned through my mind. How could someone I built everything for throw me away like garbage? My name is Emma Ward. I'm 34, a single mom, and until that Thursday morning, I ran operations at Valerix Industries. People always said I was too trusting. My sister warned me that corporate jobs chew up people like me. But I believed hard work mattered. I believed doing things right would protect me. That belief died when Blake called me redundant in front of the entire leadership team. He wasn't cutting costs. The company was growing. Revenue was up 18%. We just signed 3 new contracts. No, Blake was cutting threats. See, I knew something he didn't want the board discovering. 3 months earlier, I'd questioned a supplier invoice that didn't add up. The numbers looked wrong. Really wrong. Blake had smiled that thin smile and said, "Emma, don't slow down, progress with your conscience." I should have known right then. But I kept my head down and did my job. That was my mistake. When Blake became CEO 2 years ago, everything changed overnight. He was 42, sharp suits, confident handshakes. Everyone called him a visionary. The board loved him. Investors loved him. He promised to double our market share in 3 years. Within 6 months, the office felt different. Promotions went to his golf buddies. People who questioned his decisions found themselves reassigned. Meetings became performances where Blake talked and everyone else nodded. I watched good people leave. Our best engineer quit after Blake took credit for her design. Our finance director resigned when Blake pushed through budgets that didn't make sense. But I stayed. Liam needed stability. Health insurance. A steady paycheck. So I kept my mouth shut and focused on my work. I thought if I just did my job well, I'd be safe. I thought competence mattered more than politics. I was so incredibly wrong. The warning came after a budget meeting in January. I'd asked about a payment to a supplier I'd never heard of. $200,000 for consulting services. After the meeting, Marcus from accounting pulled me aside in the hallway. His voice dropped to a whisper. "You shouldn't have asked that question. Blake remembers things like that." I laughed it off. This was a legitimate business question. I was the operations manager. Reviewing vendor payments was literally my job. But the next week, I wasn't invited to the supplier review meeting. My monthly report was reassigned to Blake's assistant. Email chains I'd always been on suddenly didn't include me. My assistant mentioned that Blake had asked about my work schedule. "Just wants to know when people are in the office," she said. But something felt off. The ground was shifting beneath me, and I didn't realize I was standing on a trapdoor. The calendar invite appeared on a Monday morning. Strategic realignment discussion required attendance. I spent the weekend preparing. I put together performance charts showing how our efficiency had improved 23% under my leadership. I documented the new vendor management system I'd implemented. I had proof of my value. Walking into that boardroom Tuesday morning, I actually felt confident. I thought I'd show Blake why eliminating my position would be a mistake. Instead, I walked into my own funeral. HR was already seated. Security stood by the door. That folder with my name sat waiting on the table. Everything was pre-printed. Exit packet. Severance terms. Non-disclosure agreement. They'd rehearsed this. Planned it. Probably practiced who would stand where. I forced myself to smile, whispered thank you for the opportunity, and carried my box past 30 people who suddenly found their laptops fascinating. That night, I sat in my car in the driveway until the street lights came on. Liam was inside waiting for dinner. I could see his bedroom light through the window. But I couldn't make myself go in yet. The humiliation wrapped around me like a wet blanket. I kept replaying the moment. Blake's tone. His smirk. The way he never said thank you for your service, or even acknowledged my 8 years. He didn't just fire me. He erased me. Made me disappear while everyone watched. My phone buzzed with texts from former colleagues. I'm so sorry. That was brutal. Let me know if you need anything. Empty words from people too scared to speak up when it mattered. I stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were red. My mascara had smudged. I looked defeated. That's when I made myself a promise. I wouldn't break. I'd survive this. And somehow, I'd make sure the truth came out. 3 days later, I was sorting through severance paperwork at my kitchen table. Liam was at school. The house felt too quiet. I read each document carefully, highlighting sections, taking notes. That's when I noticed something strange in the employee records section. My compliance officer designation was still listed as active in a pending SEC filing. It was buried in the footnotes, but there it was, Emma Ward, authorized compliance signatory for acquisition approval. My heart started pounding. I pulled up my laptop and searched the company news. Sure enough, Valerix was being acquired by a larger corporation. The deal was worth $80 million. It was supposed to close in 3 weeks. And my digital signature was legally required to authorize the compliance review. Without it, the deal couldn't close. At least not without major delays and legal complications. For the first time since that meeting, I smiled. Really smiled. My phone rang 6 days later. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Emma? It's Blake. His voice was suddenly polite. Almost friendly. Hope you're doing well. Listen, we need a small administrative favor. I put him on speaker and kept folding laundry. What kind of favor? Just your signature on some old compliance forms. Standard procedure for the acquisition. Should take 5 minutes. My hands were steady as I set down Liam's shirt. I'll need to review any documents carefully. With my lawyer. The pause stretched out. Your lawyer. Emma, this is just a formality. Then there's no rush, I said. Send everything through proper legal channels. I'll review it thoroughly. The deadline is tight. We really need this handled quickly. Then I suggest you should have thought about that before firing me, I said and hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From power. For 5 days, nothing happened. Then my email exploded. Documents from HR, legal forms from corporate attorneys. A courier showed up at my door with overnight packages. They were desperate. I could smell it through the paperwork. I hired an employment lawyer that afternoon. Victoria Chin was sharp, experienced, and didn't take nonsense from anyone. I told her everything. The suspicious invoice. The sudden firing. The compliance clause. Don't sign anything yet, she said immediately. Let me review everything first. She called me back 2 hours later. Emma, this is bigger than you realize. That compliance clause requires full disclosure of any financial irregularities before your signature is valid. If you sign without that disclosure, you could be liable. My stomach dropped. What kind of irregularities? That's what we need to find out. But if they're pressuring you this hard, something's very wrong. That night, I barely slept. Every noise made me jump. What had I stumbled into? An email appeared in my inbox from an address I didn't recognize, boardmember47@protonmail.com. Ms. Ward, Blake Turner informed the board that you're refusing to cooperate with standard transition procedures. He claims you're being vindictive. Before we proceed, I wanted to hear your side. What's really happening? I stared at that email for 20 minutes. This was someone on the board reaching out secretly. Someone who suspected Blake was lying. I wrote back carefully, attaching the compliance clause and explaining that my signature required full financial disclosure under SEC regulations. I mentioned the suspicious invoice I'd questioned. I kept everything factual, professional, documented. The response came within an hour, "Thank you. This explains a lot." The board went quiet after that. No more emails. No more calls. Just silence. But Blake started calling me twice a day. I let every call go to voicemail. Each message sounded more desperate than the last. He called from his personal cell on a Saturday morning. Liam was eating pancakes at the counter when my phone lit up. I stepped outside to answer. "What do you want, Blake?" "Emma, we can make this worth your while." His voice was tight. "Name your price." "Consulting fees. Extended severance. Whatever you need." My jaw clenched. "You already tried to make me disappear. You humiliated me in front of everyone I worked with for 8 years. You don't get to buy my integrity now. Be reasonable. This is business." No, firing me for asking questions was business. This is consequences. The silence on his end was sharp, dangerous. "You're making a serious mistake, Emma. You'll regret this." I looked through my kitchen window at Liam, syrup on his chin, completely innocent. "No, Blake. You will." I hung up and blocked his number. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. But I felt strong. Really, truly strong. 2 days later, the news broke. I was making coffee when my phone started buzzing with alerts. Valeric's acquisition delayed, regulatory complications. Tech deal stalls amid compliance questions. Investors nervous as Valeric's review drags on. I clicked through articles, my coffee growing cold. Internal documents had surfaced showing red flags in financial reporting. The compliance clause I'd protected was now public record. Someone had leaked everything to the press. Not me. I'd been careful. But someone else on the inside wanted the truth out. The articles revealed that Blake had used falsified numbers to inflate the company's value. Fake revenue projections. Hidden debts. The kind of fraud that lands people in prison. My signature would have made it all legal. Would have certified that everything was clean. Blake had tried to make me an accessory to his crime. And when I questioned him, he fired me to keep me quiet. He showed up at the cafe where I'd been working on freelance projects. No suit this time. Jeans and a wrinkled shirt. Dark circles under his eyes. "Emma, please. I need your help." He slid into the chair across from me without asking. "We can fix this together." I closed my laptop slowly. Fix what, exactly? The fraud? The lies? Or just your reputation? It's not that simple. There were pressures. Investor expectations. The board pushing for growth. So you committed fraud. I made decisions in the company's best interest. I leaned forward. You made decisions in Blake Turner's best interest. You falsified records, inflated numbers, and when I got close to discovering it, you threw me away like trash. He reached across the table. I pulled back. Emma. You didn't want me at the table then, I said. You don't get to pull out a chair now. I slid his folder back across the table. You forged your own chains, Blake. Now wear them. The board launched a formal investigation within 48 hours. Compliance records were subpoenaed. Outside auditors were brought in. The whole company went into lockdown mode. Blake's allies started resigning. The CFO. 2 vice presidents. The head of sales. Like rats abandoning a sinking ship. HR quietly reached out to me. They wanted a statement. They wanted to confirm everything I'd told the board member. They wanted documentation of the invoice I'd questioned. I gave them everything. Every email. Every question I'd raised. Every time Blake had shut me down or pushed back. I didn't gloat. I didn't embellish. I just told the truth. The same truth that cost me my job 3 months earlier. Victoria called me that evening. Emma, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get very public, very fast. I know, I said. I'm ready. I was dropping Liam at school when my phone exploded with notifications. The news alert flashed across my screen. Valeric's CEO Blake Turner resigns amid fraud investigation. His face filled every news site. The confident smile was gone. He looked hollow. Defeated. Old. The acquisition had collapsed completely. Stock price had dropped 40%. His strategic restructuring was exposed as retaliation against employees who questioned his fraud. I sat in the school parking lot reading article after article. Other employees had come forward. The engineer whose design he'd stolen. The finance director who'd raised red flags. All of them had been silenced or pushed out. Blake had built his success on other people's work and other people's silence. He thought firing me was power. He didn't realize that integrity can't be eliminated in a restructuring meeting. My phone rang. Unknown number again. I answered cautiously. Hello. Ms. Ward. This is Catherine Price from Quantum Industries. That was the company that had tried to acquire Valerix. Catherine Price got straight to business. We've reviewed the case thoroughly, Ms. Ward. Your actions protected us from a very expensive mistake. I sat up straighter in my car. I just did what was right. Exactly. Which is why we'd like to offer you a position. Head of compliance for our entire corporate division. Your principles are exactly what we need. My heart started racing. I'd need to know more details. Of course. But I want you to know something. We're not looking for someone who follows orders. We're looking for someone who asks the right questions. Someone who can't be intimidated or bought. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like the underdog. I felt like the standard. We scheduled a meeting for the following week. When I hung up, I sat in my car crying. Not from sadness. From relief. From vindication. From the simple fact that doing the right thing had actually mattered. Walking back into that same boardroom felt surreal. But this time, I was a guest representing Quantum Industries. This time, people stood when I entered. The executives who'd avoided my eyes during my firing now greeted me warmly. Fake smiles. Nervous handshakes. They all knew I'd been right. Blake's chair sat empty at the head of the table. Someone had already removed his nameplate. The interim CEO, a woman named Patricia who'd been on the board, started the meeting. First, I want to apologize to Emma Ward on behalf of Valerix. What happened to you was wrong. We're implementing new policies to ensure it never happens again. The room was silent. I nodded slowly. Thank you. We spent 2 hours discussing the path forward. How to rebuild trust. How to clean up the financial mess. How to create real accountability. I took a slow breath and smiled. Let's talk about rebuilding. After the meeting, someone caught me in the hallway. It was Michelle, the former HR director who'd handed me my exit papers. Tears filled her eyes. Emma, I'm so sorry for how it happened. Blake threatened my job if I didn't go along with it. I should have been braver. Part of me wanted to stay angry. But I was too tired for that. We all make choices in difficult situations. I made mine. You made yours. You could have destroyed the company to get revenge. But you didn't. I didn't want revenge, I said honestly. I wanted the truth. There's a difference. She hugged me before I could step back. Thank you for having more integrity than the rest of us. It wasn't exactly closure. But it was something. A recognition that what happened to me mattered. That I'd been wronged. That standing up had been worth it. 3 months later, I signed my contract as head of compliance for Quantum Industries. My salary was double what I'd made at Valerix. My hours were stable. For the first time in years, I could pick Liam up from school without rushing. He asked me one night at dinner, "Mom, are you happy now?" I thought about it carefully. I'm getting there, sweetheart. It's been really hard. But I think we're going to be okay. Because you stood up for what's right. I smiled. Yes. Because even when it was scary and I didn't know what would happen, I chose to tell the truth. I'm proud of you, he said. Those 4 words meant more than any job title or salary ever could. Sometimes strength isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just surviving humiliation with your head up. Sometimes it's turning your worst moment into the foundation for something better. I stood on my new office balcony, city lights spreading below me like stars. My nameplate gleamed on the door behind me, Emma Ward, head of corporate compliance. I thought about that day in the boardroom. The humiliation. The fear. The moment Blake said my position was eliminated, like I'd never mattered at all. He tried to erase me. He tried to silence me. He tried to make me disappear. But in the end, I became the signature he couldn't live without. The truth he couldn't bury. The integrity he couldn't buy. People ask me now if I regret anything. If I wish I'd stayed quiet, kept my job, avoided the whole nightmare. I tell them the truth, never let someone else define your worth. Never let fear keep you silent when you know something's wrong. And never underestimate the power of being unreplaceable to the truth itself. Blake learned that lesson the hard way. I learned that sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover what you're really made of. And I'm made of stronger stuff than he ever imagined.